That's what this was. So it was like $50. I was like, man, this is amazing. All right, welcome to another episode of the Rise and Tire podcast. I am on site here at Fierce Edge Athletic Training Facility with Coach Bryce Crawford. Man, today's going to be a good episode. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure that you send this to a friend because you're going to get something out of this. Bryce, thank you for taking the time up today to be here.
No problem.
Introduce yourself.
So, my name is Bryce Crawford. I worked with Manny, was it 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago for about 2 years. So that was post bobsled. I started working at Good Life as I was making a transition out of athletics and getting into training. So myself, I was born in Curtis, grew up playing football, ended up going to Montreal for post-secondary, spent time playing football at John Abbott College and then Concordia, and then afterwards ventured off to bobsled as a brakeman. So
how'd you get into bobsled?
I wasn't good enough for the CFL. So I just had someone, basically, I was training for the CFL Regional Combine. Yeah. And at the time, I guess one of the scouts was at the McGill track.
Got it.
And basically saw me running, was like, oh, this guy looks big and he looks pretty fast. So
like the next Jesse Lumsden.
I don't know. He's a different breed.
Yeah?
Yeah, he is like, he is at 1%. He is a phenomenal specimen and athlete. When you see it in person, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, Jesse Lumsden. I think I remember meeting him. I was in Hamilton for a bit. And
when he was the Ticats?
Yeah. And then I remember when you transitioned from football to bobsledding, I'm like, wow, that was easy. Yeah,
he was one of my role models growing up. Him and another guy I really watched growing up was like Brad Sinopoli. Yeah. So he never bobsled, but he played quarterback at Ottawa, then spent time with the Calgary Stampeders and Ottawa Red Blacks. Okay. So he was like, I guess you'd say like my first like kind of local athlete that I guess I admired or I liked growing up. So yeah, that being said, as I was training for bobsled and football, I've always had an interest for athletics and training, and it just one thing led to another. I started interning with a close friend and former teammate, Chris Robertson. He's like the sports scientist for the Toronto Argonauts. He's spent time working at Simon Fraser, Team Canada Rugby. Wow. So I interned under him. I started 2016 all the way up to like COVID. Wow. So even when I was at Good Life, like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I would literally go in the evenings, like mentor under him. Like it was basically like, here's $150 a month, and I basically just worked under him and mentored. Wow. Like that's like, yeah. So like I saw it as like, okay, like I wasn't looking to make money. It was like, how can I better myself as a coach and just like get more knowledge, right? Like he's probably one of the key like role models and mentors I use. Like we talk daily or weekly. Like me and him are putting together a high school football showcase right now. But like that's one of like the big like mentors and someone who really like pushed me and kind of gave me an idea of like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. Right. And then going into COVID, like we had no work. Yeah. Oh man. So I was renting out my business partner's house actually. Yeah. So she came home from playing in Sweden and we were kind of locked in a house and it was like, what do we do? And we crushed Dexter. And we were kind of like bored. And then she's like, hey, I have a few kids that want to train. And I'm like, okay, because like essentially I had at my fiance, but my wife's parents' place, I had all my gym equipment from like when I trained. So we brought that into the basement with a combination of what she had when she was playing for Team Canada. And we essentially just started training like 2 kids to 3 kids to then it was just like word of mouth got around. And it's just like at one point we're training, we'd run through average week, 30 to 60 kids.
Jeez.
In a week. Yeah, it got busy. And then another thing we did was like every Saturday at South Curtis Arena, they have like a turf.
Yep.
And where the turf is, right, everyone's scared of bylaw, but the turf is low and the field's up high, right? So we just told these kids like, hey, we're going to run like basically a free like speed mechanic, like conditioning, change of direction section. Yep. Just get something so kids get out. It turned out to be like 15 kids the first time, and then word of mouth got around, and then Jen's like, hey, we got to come up with a plan. And I was like, why? She's like, we have like 60 kids coming. So like it happened where like the second time we ran this during COVID, we had like 60 kids. So we had every kid line up like every 5 yards, and we went the width of the field, and we're like, hey, if anyone comes, you're all cousins. But it was good because it was just like, and then like that's essentially where we got to a point where we're like, hey, we got to come up with a name. So we kind of didn't want something so like cheesy or something. So we're like Fierce, and we work with a lot of like hockey players, so we put Edge together. Yep. Vice versa, and then Fierce Edge, and then like a lot of gyms in the area and around are like a lot of blue, red, and then I was like my alma mater, so my high school I went to is like purple, silver, and black.
Oh, nice. What high school did you go to?
Holy Trinity.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, oh, we should just use these colors. Like it's just like purple, right? And it kind of blew up. Like I remember. People refer to us as like, oh, that purple gym in Oshawa. So we're talking like, yeah, it's us.
Oh, that's good though.
So I think the color really stands out. It stands out, yeah. But that's how Fierce generally got started. And then we got to a point in the basement where it was just like, okay, we can't facilitate this anymore. Yeah. And COVID was coming, so it was like, we got a space over on Boundary Road, 1,000 square feet. And it was just like, again, we went into like multiple lockdowns. Yeah. So like even working towards that, where it was like, we had paint drop sheets. We just covered the windows in the drop sheets.
Makes sense.
And like we worked out. Most of our kids we had time slots. We weren't open all day. So it was just like kids came early in the morning or they came in the evening. So we didn't really have to worry about bylaw or anything because people weren't coming and going. Yeah. But also it was good to have that service for the kids because we didn't have to, we took precautions and we weren't reckless. So the whole entire 4 years of doing it, I totally forget how long COVID lasts. We never had one case. It was like, because the kids were basically like, oh, hey, like if they woke up with a cough, they're like, I don't want to like screw this up, so I'm just going to stay home. Yeah. So all the athletes were really aware, and they knew they weren't going to lose sessions and that. So it wasn't like end all be all. So I think that helped us out a lot too, because we were providing a service, but we were also like giving these kids something to do, right? Instead of being stuck inside. We had some kids who didn't even do athletics. They just needed an outlet and needed a place to come work out, which was also good. With that being said, even before we moved to Boundary, like I was trying to I came back to Good Life when we came back, and then like that's when I put like my 2 weeks in, and basically it was like, because like I was trying to do back and forth where like I'm not gonna lie, like I remember being on a meeting with Corey and doing a team meeting, and I had it on the TV in the basement, and then I'm trying to make sure some kid doesn't squat. Yeah. And then Corey would be like, why isn't your camera on? And I'd be like, oh, like it's just not working. Right? Oh, then you have like Dan driving. Yeah. But that being said, I couldn't handle both. So like I think you know what I mean? Like one big thing I picked up was who's a Raptors player that left for the Rockets?
Fred Van Fleet.
Yeah, so Van Fleet's favorite saying, like, bet on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, that's one big thing, like, me and Jen took, because, like, obviously he was still the big Raptor player around when we started this, was, like, bet on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I took a bet on myself, and I was like, I'm gonna do this on my, not by myself, but I'm gonna pursue this. I do have a wonderful, like, business partner, and, like, I think we work very well together with how we run the business and we've gone about things. But yeah, that was like the biggest thing, is just like, and I've realized in life too, you always have to bet on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, I think you get to a crossroad where you're like, okay, what do I do? And it's like, you can either stay comfortable or get uncomfortable, but that uncomfortableness is that bet on yourself. Where you're like, hey, boom. And it pays off normally.
Yeah.
I think it always pays off to bet on yourself, because if you don't, it's always the what if. What if I did? What if I didn't? Like, I could have did this. What ifs, those are the worst things. But as long as you have passion in something, I find most people who bet on themselves, it's always successful because of the passion they have. And they're not like, it's not a stupid bet. It's not like, I'm going to be I don't know, something that's really an astrophysicist. Yeah. You go to Harvard, you go to Yale. No. I would be better than yourself, man. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? But there's certain things where it's like, no, I can do this. I know I've prepared. This is just opportunity and time meeting together. There it is. So I have a question, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you first started in the fitness industry, and how'd you overcome them?
Well, like, it's hard because I feel like it all depends on your situation. So, like, when I first got into the fitness industry, I started as a personal trainer at Ultimate Fitness in Bowmanville.
Yeah.
And it was an environment where, like, I haven't had any training. Like,
yeah.
I did my cert. I've been an athlete. That's the only thing I have. Like, I have football. I'm still bobsledding. I got the certification course. Like, I'm there.
Yeah.
I went in, and they're just like, yeah, we're going to ease you into thing. And the thing is like, everyone else is full because they're small staffed. I think we were like 5 to 7 trainers.
Yeah.
One individual quit because he's going to become a manager when they had the North End location. I get 17 clients right away.
Jeez.
So I'm brand new, fresh, about 17 clients. So it's just like, I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out fast and quick.
Yeah.
And it's like my development as a coach from like when I was like 23 to like I'm 34 now, so in 10 years, I look at some of the programming I did when I first started, I was just like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So going back to the question is like, I think it all varies on your situation, right? Where like I had that situation, then I went to Good Life, and I'm used to that, where it's just like, the way Ultimate ran, it was basically they have salespeople and they just give you people.
Yeah.
You don't have to go hunting, right? Where then at Good Life, it was like I had to like learn how to talk to people, start conversations, sell the product, sell myself, and like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I offer, and basically these are our prices, right? Which was honestly at first was like basically a big adjustment.
Yeah.
It was massive, right? With that being said, it was just like, you have to do it. It's like sink or swim, right? Because it's just like after I forget how it went, but it's like you basically have that guidance period, and then as you basically
like you get 3 months, and then after that, like it's like, hey man, you should know what you're doing by now. So
like from like, you know what I mean? And it's just like from when I started till like when I left, we'd count. There's 49 people that came and went, right?
Yeah.
It just like this, so it's just like you have to learn to adapt.
Yep.
Right? Like, and then like I look at our staff to like my Ultimate Fitness staff, like the environment matters. Like our manager at the time Phil was oh my God, like, he's so helpful. Yeah. But also like yourself and everyone else within like the building as well too. Like when I tell people this, like we legitimately had a supers team. Yeah. From like, it was like nutrition, you go to Mike. If it was a lot of strength stuff, you went to Dan, right? It was like you and oh my God. Who else am I thinking? Who am I missing? Not Ian.
Jay?
Not Jay. Who's... Oh my God. I'm just having such a brain fart right now.
Who are you thinking about?
He ended up being the manager at Ajax after COVID. Dustin, like you and Dustin have so much experience, right? So if it's just like, if I was going through something, it was like, I can go to you, I can go to Dustin, right? Yeah. Jay pretty much kept to himself.
Yeah. Jay still keeps to himself.
Yeah, Jay keeps to himself, right? But it was like, we had so much knowledge in that small group. And it was just like, and the numbers spoke for themselves. When you look at it, like, no one outside of Good Life really cares about the numbers, but you looked inside. Like Dan said all the time, we have the strongest gym too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like if you took all of us trainers, like we were strong for strong, but even our sales, like Josh, like his sale technique and his he is able to, like I said before, he could sell a broken down boat.
Yeah.
Right? But it was just but I think Phil did such a good job, putting together that team. It was just it's pretty incredible when you look at it, right?
Yeah.
So where ultimate, it was just I was still interning with Chris in that. So a lot of knowledge I brought in, I was like, okay, I'm getting ahead, right? So yeah, that being said, it's literally
the environment and also having good mentors. Because something I think that a lot of trainers miss out on, which is the mentorship. They don't think about it. They get in and then they're just like, all right, what do I do? There's challenges that you're going to face. Like at Good Life, the one thing they do is they teach you how to do whatever you're doing inside or outside. So whether you're working at Good Life or you're working here, the same skill sets you need are the skill sets you need. The only thing you do is with here would be more applying towards social media, being at different networking events, being at different events that you can just be at and be like, hey, how's it going? I'm Bryce. I own Ferris Fitness. We do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's very important. Okay. So as a collegiate athlete, you've had to balance the rigorous schedule. What time management strategies do you recommend for a new trainer trying to balance multiple clients, workout, and their personal lives?
I don't know, it's hard because it's you're in such, you have to create a routine and you have to, the thing is you're a collegiate athlete because you're passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
Right? You're a collegiate athlete because you love the grind, you love it. And that's the one thing I try, kids don't understand is it is a grind, it is a job. When you go to a post-secondary institute, you are being brought there to work and to service, right? Because that coach does not want to lose their job. They have brought you there to win. In return, they're giving you scholarship money.
Yeah.
Right? And vice versa, where it's so it's just time management is not an issue. You have to have grades to play. You have to be stronger to perform, to reduce the chances of injury, right? Or to perform at a high level. So those are all things you need to do. So when it comes to the field, it has you have to have the passion and you have to set up those routines, right? Yeah. You have to set up your personal time, right? Or with me, here, it's I'm
you want to hit the button and then press it again? It's only 20 minutes recording. No. Pause right there.
Pause.
Recording? Cool. Continue.
Yeah. So when you go into talking about how they can better, it's you have to create a routine and a process. You have to set yourself up, right? This is when are you going to educate yourself, right? Reading is probably the most powerful thing you can do, right? So it's setting up time to train, but when you're a collegiate athlete, I know I'm going all over the place right now, but essentially it was just we woke up in the morning, you go to class, after class, you basically have meetings, after meetings, you have practice, after practice, you have homework, then you're going to bed, or it could be the day you get up, you have lift, you have class, you have practice, so it's a routine, right? But you're passionate about it, right? Yeah. So it's just there's not one day that I drive into the facility where I'm I'm just I don't want to do it, right? I think that's a day where I'm okay, I got to find someone to take over. I need to step away. Same thing with Good Life. When I was a personal trainer, it was when you don't really get to pick your clients at first, it's you're building up your roster. But I got to a point where I never felt down, right?
Yeah, you never feel like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Why am I training people?
Exactly, right? It was like, okay, this is what I love doing. This is what I like doing. So, like, I'm going to do it. So, it's going to be like passion or routine.
So, off of, you said something with education and knowledge. So, what were you said you went to a mentorship.
Yep.
What are some other things that new trainers can do other than getting a mentor to work on their knowledge gap? Because I think that there's two things that trainers, when they get in, there's imposter syndrome, which is like, I'm not meant to be here. And then there is the aspect of the fact that I don't know enough. So what do you think the new trainers should be really working on in terms of their knowledge?
Working on what they're bad at.
Yeah.
Like, it's figuring out, like, it's just like, it's the same thing with athletics and everything. It's like, it's dialing on what your weaknesses are, not what you're good at, right? Like, if you're like, okay, hey, like, I come from a powerlifting background, I have general strength, right? Okay, it's just like from the cardiovascular side, like, I don't understand energy systems properly. I don't understand that. It's like, okay, let's strengthen that. Okay, like, basic nutrition, right? It's just like, learn that, right? Like, I'm not really strong in nutrition. Like, that's why I subcontract. Like, I have a nutritionist on my athlete to work with, and like, I stick with what I know. Yeah. So it's just like staying in your lane too, right? I think a lot of people too, like, if you stay with your niche, like, you're going to be very good. You can always learn new skills in that and adapt, but it's going to be working on what your weaknesses are, and then also just, like, again, what I said before is just reading. Like, we have access now, like, back in the day when we were in high school, it was just like, you had to go to like the book, like the library, rent the book. Yep. But right now it's like, you can get an ebook on everything, right? Like me, like, whenever I'm doing like steady cardio or anything, like, I have an ebook in. So if it's like, it's a book on coaching, if it's a new book on like some type of like something to do with like eccentrics or anything, right? Like, just whatever's like pondering my mind at that time, like, go through. But it's just like that's one thing. But like, going back, like, I know we've already said it, beside the mentors are the best thing. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And like, always question yourself, and like, the thing is like, spread the knowledge, and then like, communicate with other people to create conversations, right? One of my best friends, he works at CSI in Toronto with a lot of like the national athletes. And like, I'm always calling him and picking his brain. Yeah. Right. Like, he brought me in as assistant for like when he was with the Ottawa Red Blacks. So I worked their training camp. Yeah. Right. Like, that really lit my passion for football again. But he's another individual I have as a mentor, where like, if I'm like questioning myself, like, I'm firing a message like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah. Like, does this make sense? He's like, yeah, this is right. So it's just like creating that network of like people like-minded that you can reach out to. Yeah. As well, even though they're not mentors, but they're like colleagues as well too.
That's really cool. You went to the Red Blacks?
Yeah, so I was able to spend time during their training camp and doing that. So like, with Fierce, like, I do work with a lot of lacrosse and hockey athletes. Yeah. We have a good chunk of like football guys that I work with. We have a whole bunch who are playing in the youth sports, but like, that really like kind of like reshot the juices, where I'm like, oh, like, I miss this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you see it at the highest level, it's always like, oh yeah, this is fun. This is
when you see guys hit though now. Like, I see guys hit, and I'm like, did I actually do that? Like, my body is hurt. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I was just like, because there's guys like I played with who are still playing semi-pro now. I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that. Yeah. Like, I'm just like, I can't.
I remember I was in Ottawa, and I was 27, and one of these guys were playing in rugby out in Montreal. And he's like, hey, you should come play. I'm like, I used to play in high school. I'm like, I'm not going to pay. Like, I'm not at that place anymore. Yeah. Because I'm like, I can't imagine myself playing, like, getting hit, and let's say I get injured, and I'm like, I just paid. I can no longer work.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Different mindset. Like, it's
imagine you're going into work, and it's like, I blew my knee out. You got black eye. It's like, what are you doing? Semi-pro football. Like, what my position coach always said is like, after you're done school, like, if you're gonna put on a helmet, you better get a check for it. Yeah, like, that was the biggest thing. So it's just like,
It only makes sense because like you're not getting paid for it. It's like I can understand the passion for the game and I can understand that stuff. And hey, maybe like it's just like it's a different type of mindset though.
I think every athlete has their like expiry date.
Yeah.
It's just like realizing when that is, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. So speaking of that journey, what would the journey? I guess someone that's an athlete going from athletics to personal training. What's one piece of advice you would give a former athlete now pursuing personal training as yourself?
Wow. If I'm looking back, is this like, I think just being more open-minded.
Yeah.
I think it was like, I was so like zoned in on like this. Oh yeah. Like I trained at a high performance gym in Montreal. Like I mentored under them a bit too. And I'm like, oh, this is how you train.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is not how you train.
Yeah.
And it's just also like, and then like working with a lot of football athletes and then getting into hockey industry. It's just like this learning. You have to be open and learn because everyone has different objectives, right? And there's different needs. So it's just like we do not need to be able to squat 500 pounds all the time.
Yep.
Right? There's a certain point you reach where it's just like max strength is cool. It's like how fast are you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so you just have to be open-minded and there's more than one way to roam.
Yeah.
Like that's the biggest thing. So it's with like it goes with learning and it just goes with like development. And it's just like, don't close yourself off. I've worked with enough people within the industry who are more like, oh yeah, like I'm not going to like fire out names, but there's people who wouldn't talk to other people or share information, right? But I think a lot of people want to grow the community, and the more we share, the more they're going to share with another person, and they're going to share. Like Elite FTS is like a big emphasis on it. Like Dave got that from Louis, and Louis was always big on sharing the knowledge, right? Yeah. Like I'm a big conjugate guy. Like I guess not conjugate, like a West Side guy. Like I do enjoy like the Louis stuff, right? Yep. But it was just like just learning the different aspects of training, and it's just like just educating others and helping others, right? Yeah. There's a bigger and broader picture. So the more open you are to things and like what can offer is like, it's the best thing. Because when you zone in on one thing, it's just like you're making yourself one-dimensional. Yeah. Right? So it's just like, okay, hey, like, yeah, I'm an athlete, but you can't just train like that. You can't do that. And I find like even when we were working together, a lot of people would come in there and they have one way to do things. Yeah. Once you can't do it that way. Yeah, because it's not one size fits all. Or like, here's my round peg. All right, square hole. Triangle, oval. It's like, no. Right? It's like you get in a debate about nutrition where it's like, oh, I'm a vegan, like I'm a carnivore. Yeah. It's just like, who cares? Yeah. Does it work? Yeah. Can you stay consistent with it and do this for more than 3 months? If you can, then go for it. Yeah. Like if it benefits you, like if you have like problems with your digestive system, you can't eat this or this, then do it, right? Yeah. But it's just like, yeah, I think that I personally think that's the biggest issue is like people just aren't open to new ideas. Yeah. And it can go back to what you said earlier, what we were talking about earlier when we said like people are just like, just insecure or just like scared or worried, right? Like, am I not fitting in? Am I not knowing, right? Like you're gonna fail. Yep. Like you are I look back on some of the programs and I'm like, I should have done this or that, right? Yeah. So as long as like they're not getting injured, it's like, right? That's not the overall goal, but like you'll look back, like if I look back at like how I coached 10 years ago till now, I'm like, I was a horrible coach. Yeah. But then on the other side, if I look at my growth, right? Because I wasn't open-minded. Like I was like, I mentored other people. So when I came into Good Life, I was like, yo, I know, like I was one of the top trainers at Ultimate. Like I felt like I knew my shit, but I was not open. Yeah. And then it was like working with Phil and telling him, like, oh, okay, like I need to adapt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing Good Life does provide is that broad range of clientele where you get to hone in on your coaching skills, but then you get to learn new things. Because it's like, okay, I have this woman that has a metabolic disorder that's going through menopause. It's like, all right, jump through this. It's like, yeah, no, I can't jump. I pee. Oh, man, okay. Yeah. I got to learn these things. Like I still work with the general public, so, right? And it's just like, I had one individual who reached out to me last week, and he fell off a 1-story building, and it was just going over like his injuries, and I'm like, oh, this is serious, right? But it's just like, we have a therapist and a physician here at Fierce, so it's just like, that's what also helps too, where it's just like, okay, I can work with Aaron, have him work with Aaron, and then we both work together, so I can focus on the strength aspect, and then boom, right?
It's really good.
So that helps.
Yeah, it does. So now, how do you manage, or what advice would you give for client interactions and how someone can keep clients and grow their client base?
My biggest thing is just like, you got to get results.
Yeah.
Like, you have to service your client. You need to get results. You need to build that relationship, that trust with. You need to be like, hey, this is where we're going, right? Like, I've been always someone who's like, it's a double-edged sword. I'm very blunt and honest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like a lot of people at first, when they meet me, they're like, but then it's like, this is what you get. Like, I'm just honest and I'm forward. I'm like, hey, this is where we're going to be. So when someone comes in for myself for assessment, I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to have to do. And this is where we'll be. There's no real sugarcoating. But it's just, I think at the end all be all is building that relationship.
Yeah.
And you're going to have some people that blend in, and like, we've all had those clients where it's like, okay, this isn't actually working out.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't.
Yep.
Like, I have one client, who was with me at Ultimate, was at me at Good Life, and she's still with me now. Yeah. So she's been with me for 10 years.
Wow.
So I have a few, I have like 3 of my personals have been with me for more than 5 years.
Yeah, I find that you build that relationship with clients, they want to work with you.
Yeah.
You know me, like, wherever you go, I'm going.
Yeah, you just provide that service. You built that relationship, right? Yeah. That's the biggest thing, is just like, you're providing a service. A lot of people get tied up in the money and then making it like, oh, hey, like, I'm just, like, get paid, right? It's like, no, they're paying us for a service. Yep. It's the same thing when athletes come in here. It's just basically like, I need to service them and get them to where they need to be. Yeah. Because it's like, it's different from... It's different in in this type of industry compared to like the private, where like you still need to get results, but like generally a lot of them are there for general fitness and just like, okay, I'm feeling healthy, I'm feeling good. Where it's just like, we'll have kids where it's just like, they might lose their scholarship if they don't pass their conditioning test. Yeah. If they don't perform on the ice because they had a bad year, it's just like they might get pulled down in the 3rd or 4th line, and they might have the chance of like never playing again. Right? Like, or is it like, is this kid going to be able to actually crack the roster? Yeah. Right? So it's just like, there's a lot more variables, right? So it's just, and you have a short time window to do it as well too. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like, if you have like it's just like, oh, hey, I have a trip in like 7 months. So, okay, we can control your eating, just have you move. We can get to your goal, right? Yeah. We're like, with like this industry, it's just like, I'll have a kid come in and it's like, okay, I need to get my speed here, my strength here. I can only come in twice a week, and also I'm playing 5 games a week, or I'm doing this. So it's just like, you're just like, okay, let's go. So I think that's what also makes my job enjoyable, because it's just like, I'm kind of like, you're playing chess. Yeah. The whole time. You're like, it gets tricky though sometimes. Yeah. So, not much you can do. Yeah. But yeah, like, going back to be said is like, I'm going to say like building the relationships. When it comes to like approaching people and getting new clients, you just, especially with today, like you have to have good social media. Yep. Like, social media is everything. There's no such thing really now as just like
not having it.
You'll have those. Yeah, there's not. Yeah. Right.
You can barely get away with it unless you were someone that built a following before social media, and you still have that same following. Like, you can grow word of mouth, but social media is a new word of mouth too, because now someone just looks at your social and then, hey, yeah, that's my coach, send. And now they're sending everything, and now they're going through your social media, looking at your stuff, and like, oh, this person has nothing.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's also like, That's another reason why I'll post weekly workouts, because it's I'm still active, I'm still doing these things, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make an individual or client do a thing that I haven't done. We worked with our fair share of people who are the trainers, but they don't even train.
Yep. Oh man.
They don't train at all, and it's just okay, you're trying how do you practice what you preach, right?
Yeah, there has to be training happening.
You're gonna tell this 45-year-old to get underneath the bar, but you don't even know how it feels to get underneath that bar, right? So I feel that's kind of hard as well too. To really, it is what it is.
All right, so to end off, let's see the time. All right, before we end off, Chris, reset that. Then we're gonna have one more question for you. Good. All right. So, what are the top five areas of opportunity for a trainer?
Top five opportunities.
Top five opportunities. So, let's say, for instance, okay, if you can work on these 5 skill sets, you'll be good.
Communication is going to be the biggest one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say communication. Communication. What else will we put in there?
Say programming.
You like I said, it's you can have as much knowledge as you want, and knowledge will fall under programming, assess everything, right? But the thing is, you can't communicate.
Yeah.
And communication is just it can branch out to so much. But if you can't communicate, you're not gonna be able to get clients. You're not gonna be able to lead clients, right?
Yeah.
It's a thing when I have a group of 20 kids coming here for team training, right? I need to communicate. I need to be to the point. I need to be hey, this is how we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
The better you are communicating, the more you can control the environment and control the situation. I'm going to say communication. Passion is going to be another big one. If you're not passionate about training, it's going to be very hard to be successful.
Yeah.
It's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to say that would kind of go, work ethic would kind of go underneath passion.
Oh, I'd say work ethic is its own thing. Because you can have a work ethic.
I think just ethics in general.
Ethics is important.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it can come back and bite you if you're not ethical.
I guess you have willingness or openness, you to again, or the ability to adapt.
Yeah, open-minded.
Yeah, that's a better one. That's a better word. If the more open-minded you are to new concepts of things, you're just going to better yourself. It's just you're going to open up your toolbox and add more tools that you can eventually use.
Yeah.
Never you know what I mean? I never really turned down any courses at Good Life. I was okay, this is a good opportunity for me to eventually use this.
Yep.
Right? And then just add it into your toolbox on top of everything. So that's 4. What's another good one? Man, it's been so long since I've been in the personal training industry. Welcoming. Yeah, I think, or accepting.
Yeah.
You have to accept any challenge that comes your way, especially if you're new. You can't control that. Susan's broken her knee, she's torn her shoulder, and she's type 2 diabetic.
Yep.
You can't control it, right?
It's just someone that walked through the door. Huh? So you just talked about someone that just walked through the door. It's a regular thing.
Well, that's the thing. When you're when you're in that, it's people are coming to you again to service you. So it's just you have to adapt. You have to communicate. You're going to have to learn about that individual. So you're going to have that openness, and you're going to have to attack it and been okay, how can I help this individual get stronger so she can be functional every day? How can we help her control her nutrition as well? And then how can we just make her happy and service her?
That's amazing. All right, so before we end off, where can everyone find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Coach Crawford Fierce, and then Fierce at FE Athletics.
There you go. All right, well, that's it for today's episode. Hopefully you got something out of it. Well, I know you got something out of it. Make sure you share this with a friend. That's all I need you to do. And follow Bryce, Coach Bryce. He's got some knowledgeable stuff for you. All right, stay tuned for next time. Peace.